Good morning, and welcome to another episode of Coffee with the Sheriff. I'm Sheriff Danny H. Rogers of the Guilford County Sheriff's Office, and today our special guest is Miss Sandra Hairston.
Good morning, Sheriff. I am Sandra Hairston, and I am the United States Attorney for the Middle District of North Carolina. I'm very happy to be here with you this morning.
Well, it's an honor and a privilege to have you here. You know what's interesting? Tomatoes. Like, people say to me, I say, I say Sandra, I say Sandra, and I'm like, and it seems like they both are spelled about the same way to me.
It's the same name. I'll answer.
I'm like, but nevertheless, I think it's an honor and a privilege to have you here. Thank you for taking the time out to come and to share some time with us so we can just dialogue, just talk a little bit so the community can actually put a face with the name or a name with the face, or put both. Because a lot of people are not aware, you know, that we have such strong leadership in the government locally. That's an honor. That's tough. That's tight. You know, I'm trying to use ebonics, but I'm just saying it's an honor and privilege to have you.
Thank you. Thank you for the invitation. I appreciate it.
Thank you. So when you look at your life experience coming through as a young teenager to a college student to a young not public defender, but prosecutor.
Yes.
To where you're at now, in the position that you're in now, the top. I mean, it's real top. You know, a top position. When you look at that, and you see how the youth of today they want what you have or what we have, but to fight for it and to get it like we had to go and get it and work for it, they don't want to have any parts of that.
I think there may be some who may feel that way. I think the majority don't. I think the majority of the children in all communities, across all socioeconomic lines, want to get an education. Not everyone has to go to a four-year college.
Right.
There are wonderful community colleges in North Carolina that offer career paths for students in a lot of different areas. And I'd encourage them to pursue that if a four-year degree is not something that they're interested in. Community colleges offer a huge pathway to jobs and other opportunities today. And North Carolina has one of the leading community college networks in the country. But what I would say to them is always be your authentic self. Don't let someone else decide your path for you. That's what happens when a friend tries to encourage you to do something. Take a minute and think, I wonder why he or she won't do that themselves. Because as my grandmother used to tell us, anything worth doing, anything worth having. But certainly anything worth doing, that person will do for him or herself. If they're trying to encourage you to do it and for some reason they don't want to do it, then you need to take a second and think. And it's really hard. They're growing up in a different time from when we grew up.
Right.
They're walking around with a handheld computer, which is a telephone, all the time. And they have access to information, some of it good, a lot of it not good, that influences them. The peer pressure is harder than it was when we were in school. Well, I'll speak for myself. When I was in school, you walk down the hall and somebody says something to you and that's the end of it. Now it's broadcast over different types of social media, and the pressure that creates causes them to think a different way. Parents have a tough job, and I'd encourage the children to understand that you can achieve what I've achieved, what you've achieved, what their parents have achieved, what their parents want for them. No parent wants to see their child fail.
Right.
No parent wants to see their child fail. And I certainly don't know any parent I've ever encountered in any of the cases I've ever prosecuted. Not one parent who's shown up in a courtroom where I've prosecuted someone has wanted to be there with their child. it's painful for the families to have to watch individuals go through a court system, whether it's the state system or the federal system. I'm in the federal system. Once individuals are charged in the federal system, it's a different process from the state process. I started out as a state prosecutor, as we were discussing earlier, and while any appearance in a courtroom is serious, the state system has a different mission and is dealing with all the crimes all the time. You and I were just talking about something you were dealing with in the early morning hours. The federal court has a different mission. It's tasked with different jurisdiction over a wide range of federal crimes, all very serious. And as far as criminal prosecutions go, almost all of them will require someone to serve a sentence in a federal prison. And when your liberty is at stake, and when you put yourself in that position where your liberty is at stake, then not only are you going to pay the penalty, but so does your family.
Yeah.
If you're a parent, then you're leaving children behind. The child, then your parents or your spouse or other family members are left behind to have to deal with the fact that you've been taken out of society for whatever reason. And let me just say this. There are also victims and families of victims who are involved when you make a decision that then puts you in the crosshairs of the criminal justice system. They're victims and families of victims who are left behind. And those families oftentimes suffered catastrophic and tragic losses. So there are a lot of factors that that have to be considered. And so I'm saying all this for our younger people, or for anyone, quite frankly, who finds him or herself in a situation where if you simply take a minute before you pick up a firearm, before you decide that this is the way I'm going to settle this argument, if you would consider the consequences, not only for your life, but when you decide that you're going to take a life, the consequences that flow from that.
Yeah. You know, it's interesting that you bring that up. The last couple weeks, as I was saying earlier before we got started, is that people look at our titles and look at the jobs, and that's all they see. But they don't think about the fact, or maybe not even care about, that we do have personal lives. And I was in another state a couple weeks ago, and I got a phone call about an individual that was at a block party. Well, you know, I went to block parties when I was a kid. You know, not that Mom knew about it, but I knew I wouldn't. But wasn't none of the gun shooting and stuff like that. This block party here left, I think, 7 injured, 1 dead. And I'm in a conversation last night, and someone brought it to my attention. I was just talking to my mom, because I talk to Mom every day. I talk to her as much as I can. And she mentioned to me about if I knew an individual. I said, I do. And was telling me that their family was the victim of gun violence. I'm like, really? And I kind of calculated the age, and I'm like, that's kind of older. And I thought about it, I said, you know what? And you said something which is key. If people would stop and just think a moment before they pick up a gun or a knife or act out, a lot of lives and a lot of people would be a lot better off. And it's interesting because I don't think people take that time and look at it like that, you know?
No, I don't. And again, that's not to say that gun violence hasn't always been a problem in society. It just appears that we have proliferation now, and the perpetrators of the crimes are younger, and the victims are younger, and that is a situation that we're all dealing with in law enforcement, in communities. The communities don't want the violence.
Right.
The communities don't want to be unsafe, and we recognize that. I hear them. I hear the mothers and the fathers and the siblings, and listen to the stories, and have handled cases as a state prosecutor especially, and as a federal prosecutor. The person working in a bank or in a store who's the victim of a robbery, of an armed robbery, they go there to work.
Yeah.
They didn't go to the bank to work that day to have someone come in with a gun. Right. And rob the bank. They didn't go to work at the convenience store that day to have someone come in and rob them and threaten their lives and sometimes injure them. So that's something that weighs on me and my colleagues in our office. We work very hard to prosecute the cases, to bring the cases, to bring justice for the communities, and for the citizens of this district. The Middle District of North Carolina, I am the United States Attorney for the Middle District of North Carolina. I was appointed by the President. However, I've been a prosecutor my entire career, 36 years as a lawyer, all 36 years as a prosecutor. And prior to November 23rd, 2021, when I was sworn in as the United States Attorney, I had served in this district for 31 years as an assistant United States attorney. So I've been in this community as a federal prosecutor for 31 years prior to the last 2 that I've served as the United States attorney. I've handled cases in almost every county in this district, all 24, even Stokes County, where I came from. And I've handled a fair number of cases from Guilford County. A number of cases in the Greensboro area, High Point area, surrounding parts of the county. So I'm not unfamiliar with the lay of the land. Yes, sir, I do.
Yeah, you know the lay of the land.
And while people may not know me, I'm not a politician. I'm not a person. I'm doing the job that I was sworn in to do, to protect the community, to uphold the laws and the Constitution of the United States. And while I'm very happy to meet with and talk with anyone about the job, as an assistant United States attorney, it wasn't necessary for me to be the face of the office. Now it is. And I'm very happy to do that. I'm very happy for the community to know who I am and what the job is about. And I'm happy for them to know that I come from very humble beginnings, and I do understand that coming in contact with the law enforcement community is a frightening experience. It's an unpleasant experience for most who are charged with, not most, anyone who's charged with a criminal offense. But our job is to seek justice and to do that fairly for all parts of the community. All parts of the community, no matter where you come from.
Right. So, I'm looking out I'm looking at you as a young male getting ready to exit high school, and I'm trying to decide: do I want to go into law, or do I want to go into business, or do I just want to go to trade school? But I hear your story, and I'm like, oh man. That may be interesting. What would you suggest, or how would you direct me to start in that direction, to where, in another 30 years or 40 years, I could be sitting here or sitting somewhere?
Well, I think it just depends on where your interests actually lie. I don't know when I was in the 8th grade that I knew that I wanted to be a lawyer. By the time I graduated high school, I actually thought I was going to pursue a PhD in psychology and English when I went to undergraduate school. I graduated from undergraduate school with a degree in English, and was still thinking about graduate school, but the legal career just drew me that way. For reading about different cases, legal cases that had taken place in history, growing up in the small town that I grew up in, and I remembered as a child that there'd been a homicide, double homicide in Walnut Cove, and nobody in our town had ever experienced anything like that. And I didn't know anything. I was a kid, but listening to adults talk about it and who was accused of it and whether that person actually had done it. And I remember thinking as a 7th grader, 6th or 7th grader, are people really accused of things? And people really go to jail for things they didn't do? And somehow that stayed with me. So that's a very long answer to your question, but
that's a good answer though.
that's how I ended up here. So I just encourage children to follow paths that they're interested in. If you are really good in math, if you're really good in sciences, I cannot fix a car. I cannot repair anything on a car. My brother, when he was 6 years old, our father bought him a cool little truck, and it could do all kinds of cool things. And he took it apart one day while Daddy was at work. And when he came home, it was just all over the floor. And he looked at him and he says, "I don't know what you did there, buddy, but you're going to put that back together." And he did. Now, I couldn't put it back together, but I'm just saying that's evidence of some engineering ability there and some mechanical ability that I don't possess.
I understand.
So for children, that's what I'd say. A parent looks at a child and you can see in a child what they have abilities to do, and you encourage them just like I was encouraged. Reading and writing were my thing. And to be a lawyer, you have to be able to write really well.
That is true. That is true. We, in the past several years, we here in this state of North Carolina or in the county of Guilford have experienced an uptick of gang activity. We have. I've received ridicule from people, we don't have gangs, we don't have this, and I'm like, okay. And I just sit there and listen to them. Because when they got done, now I said, okay, well, thank you. But now they're seeing it from a different level now. And it's unfortunate people not feeling safe to sit on their porch. People not feeling safe about walking across the parking lot. It's the police fault, the police this. Well, of course I stand against that part of it, but we do what we need to do. We war against criminal activity because we have to. We're working together as partners and other law enforcement agencies. The goal is not to destroy the mindset of the individuals, but to restore the mindset of people. Rehabilitate the mind, the body, the idea of wanting to be a gang member. And it's funny because now I'm seeing where the old gang members are afraid of the new gang members. I never thought I don't think I ever would have thought that. People have reached out to me in the last few weeks, wanting to talk to me. And I talk just like you, I talk to anybody. But I have to be wise about what I'm talking about, what I'm listening to. And I try to make sure that I tell them when I talk to people, especially the young kids, be careful what you say, what you entertain, who you hang out with, stuff like that. Being said, as we work together, my goal is to do what has to be done to bring them off the street, to get the violent criminals off the street, get them sentenced where they could be rehabilitated, okay? But at the same time, rehabilitate the community, the community that where they have begun to believe that that's a part of life they want to join. Any suggestions to me of what I need to do or how? Oh.
That's a big question. I think, Sheriff, because you are from the community, I think the community knows where your heart is. And what you just said, I think, is what you continue to do. Is you talk to the community, you talk to the young and the old in the community to gain their trust and to show them that while we are going to do our jobs,
right,
we are going to enforce the laws, because enforcing the laws means that they are all safe. They're not mutually exclusive goals. They can run on parallel tracks to try to, as you say, rehabilitate the community and the community's trust and keep them safe. Those who have to serve sentences and who are incarcerated will be given opportunities. They have to decide to avail themselves of those opportunities. My grandmother always told us that God gives us all free will.
That he does.
He gives us all free will. And you then decide which path you're going to take.
Yeah. You know, it's interesting to hear you say grandmother. I too had, I was blessed to have 2 grandmothers and 2 great-grandmothers on each side. Dad, mom, and grandmother, mom's mom, and grandmother. And they seem to have been the patriarch.
That's right.
For the families. Now, I had granddads, great-granddaddies, but they was always just, well, whatever your mom said. Like, you know, there's so much we can talk about. You know, we see a lot of stuff going on, and we can't never cover it all in 1 or 2 settings.
Could I just add just one public service announcement for the children?
I like that.
For the children and for their parents. We're seeing an increase in a terrible crime called sexploitation, which amounts to children being contacted on their phones by individuals who are representing themselves to be someone the child thinks they know. Mm-hmm. The child is being tricked into doing certain things, such as sending photographs of themselves that are revealing,
right.
Put it that way. The child is then blackmailed or extorted for money. The child doesn't know what to do, and oftentimes it ends in a tragedy for the child who has been duped or fooled. So I'll say to the children, if that happens to you, simply go tell your parents.
Yeah.
Your parents love you. There is nothing you can tell them that's going to make them stop loving you. Do not be afraid to go tell your parents, this is what I've done, this is what's happened, and your parents need to go tell a police officer or a law enforcement officer. Secondly, I'll say to young and old, please don't buy any type of drug from the internet, because we are seeing an explosion of young people who are purchasing drugs from the internet or purchasing drugs from a drug dealer. And those drugs are laced with fentanyl, and fentanyl is deadly. So I implore our young people to please, please hear this message. It will save your lives. It will save your parents the heartache of having to watch you suffer through a consequence, or for them to have to suffer through a consequence where you've made a really bad choice. So thank you for letting me speak.
Oh, you're very welcome. Thank you for making it. I told my children when I was in control of them, decisions that we make or that they make last a lifetime. Were they good decisions or bad decisions? The goal is to teach them to make the good decisions. And when they made the bad decisions, the goal was to tell them and show them, you can come to me and let me know.
Right.
I'm here for you. I can't be here for you if you don't let me know. You know, I used to give them, I used to tell them, look, I give you room for error. I give you that. We all have that. I said, but I don't give you no room for no craziness. I give you room for growth, but I don't give you room for craziness. You know, and I think when parents do that with children versus trying to be their child's friend, I think it works. I know it does, you know.
Oh, it does. My mother was, I said this in front of her one time and she didn't quite know how to take it. I said she was never my friend growing up. She was my mother. Once I was grown, she was my best friend. And I explained to her what I meant by that, and she paused for a few seconds and she says, "You're right."
Yeah. And look at you. You've done it very well. Your mother.
It's by the grace of God.
Your mother did well with raising you and your brother. I once again want to offer my condolences to you.
Thank you.
You know, you just never know.
No.
You know, I have a cousin. I had a cousin who was a sheriff in Dillon. He and I had not seen each other for over 40-some years, maybe 50 years. Really didn't even know each other until a cousin connected the two of us back together. So I became sheriff in 2018. He became sheriff in 2020. My father transitioned at the middle of July, and I was going down to South Carolina where our family dealt with stuff here. I was dealing with it, but I was dealing with it from afar, and I come back. And I called my cousin. I said, "I'm coming through Dillon." I said, "Every time I come through Dillon and want to meet with you, you always are busy. I will not take no today for an answer." He said, "Okay, cuz, where you at?" And I told him I forgot what I was on. He said, "Well, meet me at the Pallet gas station, and I'll meet you there." So he and one of my older cousins came. Now, he and I hadn't seen each other in decades. We talked about how blessed we are to have two sheriffs in one family, one in North Carolina, one in South Carolina. We come from the descendants of our great-grandparents, which is on my dad's side of the family. So my great-grandmother and his great-grandfather was brother and sister. We talked, we took pictures. A week and a half later, he transitions.
I'm so sorry. My goodness.
A week and a half later. I'm like, wow, we never know.
Right.
So this is my public service announcement. We must live every moment as though it is our last, and embrace the love and kindness that God has put before us, and to expound that love out to all mankind. Public service announcement.
That is a great announcement, Sheriff.
I never would have thought.
I'm so sorry for your loss.
Yeah. You know, and then back to back, my dad, cousin. I'm like, wow. So I said, you know what? My ticket, I have a ticket. Don't want to cash it in anytime soon, but it is what it is.
That's right. That's right.
But you know, to be in the position that you're in, I am very honored and grateful for you. I really am.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm grateful for you and your whole office, the office of the Sheriff, Guilford County. We have a great partnership, and we thank you for that, for the task force officers you have assigned to our federal agencies, for your local officers, and for the work that you do every day.
No, we thank you.
Thank you.
Very grateful for you, and believe and know that people will watch. Just the fact that we got a chance to dialogue.
Yes, sir.
To hear your voice.
Thank you for the
watch.
invitation. I appreciate it.
Yes.